Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm your host, Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. Now, on Saturday in college basketball, there's one of the best rivalries in the sport, with the Purdue Boilermakers traveling on the road to the Indiana Hoosiers. Who do I think is going to win this great rivalry game? Let's break it down. Now, Purdue is having a fantastic season. They're 22-1 and 11-1 in the Big Ten so far this season. And Matt Painter, he's one of the longest tenured head coaches in the Big Ten, and he's had a fantastic tenure as the Boilermakers head coach, and this year could be one of his best seasons yet. And you look at some of Purdue's key performances this year. They beat Marquette 75-70 early on in the season, and then they beat Gonzaga 84-66, and they also beat Duke 75-56 all in the non-conference. But then they dropped a game to Rutgers 65-64 at home. That was a really tough loss. But then they got big wins on the road over Ohio State 71-69, and they also beat Michigan State 64-63 as well. And they only have one loss on the season, and they've been finding ways to get key wins in the rugged Big Ten, and they've won 9 games in a row. And a big reason why they're having such a great season is their All-American center, Zach Edey, who's averaging 22 points per game, 13 rebounds per game, and 2.1 blocks per game. He's having a fantastic season so far, and he's almost unstoppable in the paint. Once he gets the ball within 2 or 3 feet of the basket, it's almost game over, and he's going to score almost every time. And that's going to be a very tough matchup for Indiana to cover. Fletcher Loyer, a freshman guard, is averaging 12.4 points per game, 1.7 rebounds per game, and 2.5 assists per game. He's been a big surprise for Purdue this season. He's definitely playing a lot better than a lot of people thought that he would coming into his freshman year at Purdue. And Braden Smith's also been fantastic as well. He's averaging 9.5 points per game, 4.6 rebounds per game, and 4.3 assists per game. These two freshman guards are a key reason why Purdue is 22-1 this year. Mason Gillis is averaging 6.6 points per game and 3.3 rebounds per game. And Caleb Furst is averaging 6.4 points per game and 5.1 rebounds per game. Two really solid players for Purdue. And Purdue also has other players like Trey Kaufman-Renn and Ethan Morton that are really solid as well. And Purdue on offense is averaging 74 points per game, and on defense they're only allowing 60.3 points per game, and that's really solid for Purdue. When you were scoring 14 more points per game than you were allowing to your opponents, that's definitely a reason Purdue has a 22-1 record. Now, on the Indiana side, they're having a really solid season in Mike Woodson's second year at the helm of the Indiana Hoosiers. They're 15-7 and 6-5 in the Big Ten this season, and they've had a bit of an up-and-down year. They've had some injury issues as well, which has limited their full potential from when they were picked to win the Big Ten in the preseason. But they're having a solid season overall, and they look like one of the better teams in the Big Ten, and they're definitely in the race for a tournament bid. Now, some big results for Indiana this season. They got a huge non-conference win over Xavier on the road, 81-79. That has really helped out their tournament resume. They also got a big win over North Carolina at home, 77-65. But then they lost at Rutgers, 63-48. That was a tough loss. Then they lost to Arizona on a neutral site, 89-75. Then they lost at Kansas, 84-62. But then they were able to get a big win on the road at Illinois, 80-65. So Indiana has been up and down this season. They've gotten some big wins, and they've also suffered some tough losses. But overall, they're having a pretty solid year. And a big reason for Indiana's success this season has been the play of Trace Jackson-Davis, who's averaging 19.5 points per game, 11.2 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game, and 3.1 blocks per game. He's been the most dominant player in the Big Ten besides Zach Edey. He is a fantastic player. He's improved at his passing this year, and he's improved his touch around the rim, and he's also a block machine. And overall, he's just a really solid player that does so much for the Indiana offense. And freshman guard Jalen Hood-Schifino is averaging 12.3 points per game, 4.2 rebounds per game, and 4.3 assists per game. He's had to step up this season with the absence of Xavier Johnson, who's still out with a broken foot right now for Indiana. That's a really tough loss, and that's another reason why Indiana has suffered more losses than they probably would have if they were a completely healthy team. But Jalen Hood-Schifino has been very solid in his absence, and if he plays well in this game for Indiana, it will definitely help out the Hoosiers. Miller Kopp's averaging 8 points per game, 2.3 rebounds per game, and 1 assist per game. He's the best three-point shooter on the team. I do think Indiana needs to get him more open looks, but he has been solid this season. Tamar Bates is averaging 7.9 points per game, 2.1 rebounds per game, and 1.4 assists per game. He's playing better in his sophomore season for Indiana, and he's a really good spark plug off the bench. And Race Thompson is averaging 7.7 points per game, 5.4 rebounds per game, and 1.2 assists per game. He missed 4 games with a knee injury that he suffered in the Iowa game, but Race Thompson has returned, and he's a really solid energy guy for Indiana. And Indiana also has other players like Jordan Geronimo and Trey Galloway and Malik Renew, Purdue, who are all very important pieces for Indiana. And Indiana on offense is averaging 77.5 points per game, and on defense they're giving up 67.7 points per game. Indiana's offense is better this year than it was last year, but Indiana's defense has not defended at as high of a level as they did last year. But overall, they've traded off offense for defense, and they're still a really solid defensive team, especially when they're at home. And on offense, Indiana has definitely improved. So who do I think is going to win this big Big Ten rivalry game? Now, Purdue obviously has had much more success than Indiana this year. They're 22-1. They're number 3 in the net, and they're one of the best teams in college basketball, and they're currently a 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. Matt Painter is a fantastic coach, and he has a lot of experience in the Big Ten. He's won a lot of games in tough environments, and he should have his team composed and ready for this game at Indiana. Zach Edey's going to be a force for the Boilermakers. It's going to be tough for Indiana to throw bodies at him to slow him down, and Purdue has solid guards as well, Fletcher Lawyer and Braid Smith. As long as they're composed and are able to handle the Indiana atmosphere and be able to handle the pressure of the Indiana guards, then that will really be able to help Purdue win. But they are freshman guards, and this will probably be one of the toughest environments they've ever played in, so it's going to be very interesting to see how they handle that. And Purdue as a whole just has a really solid team of players that play hard, and they know how to win games. But Indiana, this game is at Assembly Hall, and Assembly Hall is one of the toughest environments in college basketball, specifically when they play top teams. And since Purdue is the number 1 team, Indiana is going to have a sold-out crowd. Indiana has not beaten a number 1 ranked team in 10 years since they beat Michigan, who was ranked number 1 in 2013. Indiana really needs this game. They're not on the brink of falling out of the tournament picture, but this would be a really big win to keep them on the right path. This game would really help Indiana stay toward the top of the Big Ten standings and to be able to get a better seed in the NCAA tournament. Mike Woodson, I think, is going to really have his team ready to go in this game. If Indiana has Xavier Johnson back from his injury, I think that would help out the Hoosiers even more, but I don't think he's going to be able to play. But Jalen Hood-Schifino has been a really solid player for Indiana this year, and he's been really good when Indiana's been at home, and I think that Trace Jackson-Davis is going to have a really solid game, even though he is going up against Zach Edey. And Indiana also has other role players as well that play much better when they're at home, and I think the Assembly Hall crowd is going to be really tough for Purdue. I'm going to go with Indiana to beat Purdue 71-69 in this Big Ten rivalry game. I think this game could go either way. Purdue is a really solid team. They play fundamental basketball, and they have the most dominant player in college basketball in Zach Edey. And Matt Painter is one of the best coaches in college basketball, but Assembly Hall is going to be such a tough environment for Purdue to go in. They've already won at the Breslin Center, and they've won at a lot of other tough places in college basketball so far this season. But Indiana is going to be the best environment that Purdue has played in so far this season, and it's going to be extremely difficult for them to go and win at Indiana. Indiana was able to beat Purdue at home last year, and I think that this Indiana team is better than that Indiana team. And even though I do think Purdue's a better team as well, I think that Indiana overall, they're going to play with heart and hustle, and Mike Woodson's going to be able to get his team to play even harder to feed off the atmosphere. And I think this is going to be a close game that goes down the wire, but I think that Indiana is going to beat Purdue 71-69 in this Big Ten rivalry game. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below whether you think Indiana or Purdue is going to win this rivalry game and why. And I will see you next time.